Rightly remarked by the last session, we human beings are social animals and we do need to go out there and travel. So I hope that the travel and tourism industry really cope up very soon. And now, coming up next is another great session. And moderating this session is going to be Mr. Devdeep Sen Gupta. He is in conversation with Neelam Dhawan, and they are talking about making a B2B startup tick and click. Over to you, Mr. Devdeep.
Thank you. Thank you. Neelam,
Welcome,
it's
sir.
all Neelam, it's always a pleasure to interact with you. And as
Thank
I've
you.
been and as I've been saying, is I've been looking forward to this opportunity to ask you some questions because it's always been the other way around.
Yes.
so, so, so Neelam, today's session is pretty interesting. It is about B2B startups, what makes them click, what makes them grow. Given your vast experience in the corporate, running large multinationals for most of your career, also being on board of both Indian and global companies, as well as being a mentor to many startups. My question to you is, the startup community, especially B2B startup in India, is the most exciting place today. Right. Today, if you look at, it is projected that while it contributes to today's Indian B2B startups, contributes to less than 1% of the global B2B SaaS, but over the next decade or so, it will possibly contribute about 10%. So it is obviously attracting many new ideas, many investors, and many opportunities. But at the same point of time, in your mind, what are the top three challenges for Indian startups to attain global scale?
So Deepdeep, thanks for that question, and it's a real good kickoff because I've been closely working with some startups for the last 3 years, and I'm on the board of Yatra, which I still think we are in the startup mode, and I'm on the board of Skylo Technologies, which is very new in satellite communication. Plus, I mentor quite a few SaaS companies. What I find is there are three things which we all struggle with. The first thing is talent. Getting the right talent to work with you is very difficult. Everybody wants to work with an established company, and given that there is a failure rate of startups, people are choosy and they don't look at their career very easily. The second challenge which most entrepreneurs face is the capital. Getting the right investments is extremely difficult, especially when you are at the idea stage and you need the seed money to start the business. It's a very difficult sell because we are now become very suspicious of will this succeed or not, and hence investors are evaluating and re-evaluating, and getting capital easily is not easy anymore, and I hope it will ease out. The last thing is uh, how quickly can you launch the technology platform or the solution you are working on, because time is money. The more time you take, somebody else will copy your idea. More time you take, your investors will start asking questions on when you will get returns. So there is such a pressure in startups to launch very quickly their products, and couple it with talent, couple it with investment, you really have a hotbed of in the startup community.
No, I think very succinctly put, Neelam. I think you've captured I think the three critical essence of it. One is obviously the entire idea of the product or the solution, what you call as a product market fit. That's number one. Number two, how do you obviously get investors to believe in you, right? And more importantly, how do you get talent to come and join you, to come and work for you, and so that they can help you achieve your growth objective. So I think it's very well captured. So maybe I'll start off on the talent aspect of it, because that's the most important aspect, to
Right.
start off with. Because hiring the first employee, if I'm a early stage startup, hiring the first employee, or maybe hiring the 10th employee becomes that much more difficult or simple, depending upon some of the other factors. So what's your advice to, I would say, to founders and to startups when they go about attracting talent? And as you rightly said, while in the Western world today there is a culture of people taking risks and joining startups. But in India, people rather want to have well-established careers in established companies. So how do you break that? How do you break that mold, and how do you attract talent?
I think till the first 100 or first 50 employees at least, it is a big challenge because the word of mouth has not spread about the work you're doing. The chief talent manager or the person who has to go and talk to and interview people and select candidates is the entrepreneur himself, because he or she knows the what they want to achieve, what is the vision for that company, and they are the best to articulate the direction the company will take. And that's when I feel they are the only ones who can convince at least the first 10, 20 employees. So until you get these 15, 20 people who are like minded like you, who want to work and believe in your focus area or your solution, then then it builds up. But getting the first 20 is so difficult, so difficult. We are interviewing, maybe you'll interview 10 and one may
Correct.
I don't think even 10% join of what we interview, but
Right.
that's how it is currently. And this is the irony. Startups means you need very good quality talent who will be independently work and contribute. They're going to lay the foundation of that company, and
Absolutely.
it is tough to get them. Yeah, so the promoter has to do the first few recruitments himself, herself.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I guess they become I think, the chief talent officer in some sense, as you rightly said, because it is about establishing the brand. It is about, building the credibility with people as much as important to customers. And coming to the topic of customers and clients, uh, you know, I guess there are two aspects of the startups. It is good to get, as a B2B startup, it is good to get some early customers in friends and family. But how do you crack open big accounts? That becomes one of the key aspects for a startup. And given your experience, Neelam, of managing large corporations, as well as being partner, as well as being advisor, how does these startups go about being able to get beyond friends and family clients?
Let's look at the startup community. It's in two big areas. Somebody once told me in India only two areas are happening: food and technology.
True.
So food is B2C. Everybody will
Yeah,
order for food,
of course.
and you see cloud kitchens and whatnot coming up. So that is one area. The other area is the I would say fintech area is a very big, and plus e-tailing is big. E-tailing again goes B2C. So B2B
Correct.
is fintech. It is travel. It is getting tools in front of the customer and SaaS solutions. Now enterprises already have an IT or a environment running. They have their processes defined, they have their environment running. And you come in as a startup, they'll say, I don't know whether it'll fit into my environment. For a small solution, I'm not going to change my big engine.
Right.
So they will inevitably ask you to do POCs. Now, proof of concepts is a very expensive proposition because you show the solution, you make it work in their environment, and sometimes they'll say, make it work for a month before we will take a decision. But there's no way out. The customer wants to see the product and have a feeling it is stable. If it is not stable,
Right.
then they won't use it. So they will want you to use it. If you're in SaaS, the first problem is, even if you want to give it free, people don't use it. It just
Yeah.
lies on their shelf and they won't use it.
True.
So getting them to adopt and look at and do a POC is important. And then if it works well, they will look at going forward with you. Maybe you have to use your relatives and friends and acquaintances who know you and trust what you can bring to the table to experiment initially. Once you have two or three testimonials, I think then it becomes a little bit easier. You have users whom you can talk about to other customers. But corporate is very suspicious. They have seen many startups in the last decade come in and then fizzle
Correct.
out, and they feel, oh, I'll be left without a solution. and hence they don't use it as often. So building that trust is very critical for us to do it.
No, absolutely. I think you're spot on, Neelam, because it is for it's really really hard work to crack open a large corporate, but at the same point of time, once you make it successful, it works as a multiplier effect
Hmm.
for your customer acquisition strategy. In fact, coming to that, you know. I know back in your days in HP, you had put a lot of focus on partnership, building partnerships. Right, because I've seen a lot of startup founders often struggle between, building up a robust ecosystem and trusting on partners and sharing a pie of the revenue with them, vis-a-vis doing it everything themselves.
Hmm.
So, what role do you think, ecosystem or partnerships plays for a startup, and what stage of it?
For me, partnerships are very critical. All my life, I felt you can't reach every customer, you can't reach every market, you can't reach every geography. So you need alliances and partners to help you go and work on it. Now, the problem is if you go after the big names of partnerships, they may not have the bandwidth to develop those focus on your product, right?
Correct.
So they already have established products, they don't want to do it. So you have to find like-minded companies who are willing to invest
Yeah.
time and resources to build a business model around your product. And this is especially if you are looking at a SaaS offering. Now, um, in one of the companies which I am working with, they went and they realized that they are working on a product which will be on every boat, on every railway bogie, and so on and so forth. They realize that they can't. They're a startup. It can't go to. They can't service and support each and every boat which exists. Fisheries and other boats and so on and so forth. So in that kind of a situation, you do need alliances and partnerships, but they are looking at, can it be self deployed? And many of the SaaS solutions today are something which you can deploy or install on
Correct.
your own. So
Easily.
we are learning from the Apple and the Samsung stores, the Apple Store and the Samsung Store, to how you download an app, you run it yourself. And many of the startups are motivated to follow that model. Somewhere it works, somewhere you need alliances and partnerships to go and uh, pitch to the customers, but it plays a very important role. You don't know the application by industry also. How auto sector will use it is very different, how banking
True.
sector will use something, and you need associations to work on this. Yeah.
No, that's
but
true.
but you're right, they will, big companies will not come to you. You need to focus on the smaller part.
Ecosystem. Yeah, ecosystem. Yeah, because you're so right. Because there's also a stage for that. Because if you go too early to the ecosystem, it might, if your product is not is not fully robust or ready,
Hmm.
it might create more problems from a customer support or a product support perspective. When you go, open it up to ecosystem. So there's this right balance to strike. So, one of the expectation, Neelam, I'm sure, being on boards and mentors to startups, you would have, along with other investors, or or with the investment community, is to drive triple-digit growth,
Hmm.
right? So, come way, because that's I would say that's a minimum expectation.
Hmm.
Now, coming to coming to making choices for startups, should we invest into expansion into the domestic market? Should we go international? Is always a choice between a rock and a hard place, right?
Hmm.
And there are, while there are few success stories of companies, Indian B2B SaaS companies, which has gone global and have done really well. There are also many stories where companies have not been so successful. Maybe they went too early. So, what's your advice? When should one look at geographical expansion? Is it go straight to west? There is this thing in the especially in the B2B SaaS side of it. One says that, look, you cannot become a billion-dollar company by being only in India. you got to go outside India. Maybe you have to go to North America. There's other thought process which says there is enough market in India, in GCC, in Asia, maybe Southeast Asia. So what's been what's your advice? What's the right model?
So it depends. You look at Zerodha. Zerodha has come up with a solution which fits the existing market. He's a disruptor in the share market, so to speak. And he found a niche, he found a gap. Now, Zerodha going elsewhere may not be feasible, but he's got enough business which he can do in India and more. And then he can modify and have offerings for other countries. To have an offering which fits India and another country at the same time is not easy because of the currency changes. Sometimes it's a language change, the tax structures are different. So, building the billing module for it also is a different solution required in every country. I sometimes feel if you have launched in Bangalore, it may not sell in New Delhi, and you need to have an understanding of that market before you move from Bangalore or Hyderabad to New Delhi or Mumbai. So, same is true with geographies. What I feel is phase one, and this is my personal way of thinking. Phase one, do specialize in one geography, get your footprint, you test, understand, and have your product fully made out, so to speak. Then look at another geography. And before you decide, is it going to be Indonesia, Vietnam, US, or Australia, you must have a deep understanding as to why your product or solution will succeed in that market. So do that homework before you just suddenly go, because you may go ahead, appoint a distributor or a dealer, or open an office, whichever three you are going to do. Uh, and then you realize the product is no fit in that market. You would have spent money which you shouldn't have. So, doing which geography next? So, my recommendation is go in a phase manner. Do deep dive in one, make it work, see the product is stable or the solution is something which market has started picking up. Study the next market. You can do it parallelly, see what changes you need to make in the product and solution, and then decide to launch. Otherwise, we'll be very tiny in India, very tiny elsewhere, and it will be irrelevant.
So I guess if I summarize your recommendation is first, obviously, do your product market fit, gain some critical mass before before you want to scale beyond the geographies, whether it's a regional geography, whether it is a different geography, because in terms of localization, whether it is language, whether it is currency, or even business practices may differ quite a lot. So I guess that's what your recommendation is. And coming to the expansion, typically I'll possibly put on the investor hat. Investors basically look at what's the product market fit and what is the total addressable market.
Hmm.
Right,
Hmm.
right. They look at the TAM,
Hmm.
and basis the TAM, they will decide that look, one of the thought process would be the TAM is not big enough just to play in one geography, so you should expand.
Hmm.
Now, in theory, it may be a good, I would say, a good decision, but when it comes to the execution, that's where the devil lies in the details, and
Right.
that's where,
And also, how much investment can you afford? Because
yeah,
two markets will need brand creation, marketing, getting leads, having few people to service that market. So, do you have the resources? If you have, you've done a plan, why not do it? Also, there are two kinds of investors. Some investors who are saying, let's look at long term returns, there'll be a big bang return in the long term. And
right,
some who are saying short term
yeah,
returns, I don't mind getting less returns, but I need it very quickly. So it
yeah,
also depends on which kind of an investor has
investor.
invested in your company.
That's true. That's true. And also, as a founder, when you're raising your capital, are you
Hmm.
raising your capital at the seed stage? Are you raising your capital at the Series A? Your pressure point will also depend upon that, because
Right.
the investors would also look at exit on
Hmm.
the exit period that way. So, in fact, very interesting. So, maybe a follow-on question, and especially for founders and startup. Uh, Again, given your vantage point, Neelam, most of the time founders are in the conundrum of balancing their focus between managing investors, managing clients, and managing talent. So, how do you strike the right balance?
And I'll add a fourth dimension, also managing the product readiness.
Of
They are the
course, of
ones who
course.
are laying the direction and
Yeah,
they're putting it on. So I think it's somewhere you have to prioritize. Maybe you have to do all four. You're the chief talent officer, you're the CEO, you're the chief finance officer going and getting money in, and you are the head of R&D to get the product developed. And believe me, it is extremely difficult to get the balance. And I have seen some people just get sucked into the technical issues and then they don't have focus on customers. And as a startup, customers expect to meet the promoter
of course.
rather than meet somebody
Yeah,
you've hired initially
yeah,
and to open the doors. So it's quite a difficult role. I would say it's more than 24-hour role for anyone who starts a new company in this country. And then you have regulations and you have to have approvals and GST and tax and all that to be done too before you can start booking orders and do business. So I don't know what's the right thing, but step one is to have the right team. That's the number one team. And then step two is to get the product and the roadmap of the product and solutions defined and have a group of people who will then build on it. You can't be Bill Gates and do coding all by yourself, right? And he could do it,
yeah,
but
yeah,
I don't think we all can do it.
yeah.
So you need to have that as a team. And then once you are at a stage of readiness, then you need to look at customers. And I tell you, all four, you can't delegate. It is so difficult a role that you just can't say, okay, I'm not going to look for investors. Sorry, you won't get the investors
Yeah.
then. So
So,
it's all four which the promoter has to prioritize at different stage of his company.
no, you're so right. And in fact, yeah, there are four dimensions: of it. Product, people, customer, investors, and you cannot prioritize. You have to be almost be a superhuman to be able
Mhm.
to manage that.
Yeah.
And that's where maybe my question to you, Neelam, is that's where role of board advisors many a times mentors, coaches comes in a lot, right? So since you're always you're a board advisor as well as a mentor and a coach to many of them. So how do you is there anything specific you tell them, you guide them, you coach them about?
Yeah, so first sometimes I wonder how did they reach out to me. So they do reach out, and they'll
Sure.
sometimes I don't know them and they'll say so and so told me when I spoke to him or her, and that we need someone to guide and have communicate with us. So it comes through introduction. So how do you find a mentor and a coach? First, many startups don't even know how do I find a mentor and coach. And I have seen people reach out to Premji, to even Mr. Ratan Tata, and say, and those people sometimes, if they like your idea, do reach out to you. So you
Sure.
are seeing very senior people, reach out and do the conversations with startup and mentor them also. So that is one on how you contact, people and ask them. The second thing is when the challenges which come, everybody comes and says, so how do I make a pitch for investment? I think um, that's a very big game. Just
Yeah.
like you talked about total addressable market, just thinking through a business plan is where I find we need to focus on. If the pitch is made right,
Sure.
I think one of the battles, which is to get investment, is right. If so, so the question that everyone should have: why should this investor invest in my business? Or why should this person join my company? Or why should this customer buy my product? And you have to have a full understanding and a plan. I think we just approach, and when I look at the plan, sometimes I feel this is not a plan you and I can invest in,
Mm.
and perhaps it will not give the returns the crowd is looking at. And I think it's important. Um, Now you can't just pitch generically. You can't just say here is a product I can sell to telecom, banking, manufacturing, and so on. It has to fit into a need in that sector.
That's true.
So that's another aspect, and I find if you're not clear on these things, you don't meet success, and that is important to guide. Making a strong business plan, making a strong investment plan, I think is very critical for them. And that's what I guide them on. I mean, most of the time, our discussions are around this.
Yeah, yeah, that's so very true because most of the time people maybe, as you rightly said, the founder could be technical in nature,
Hmm.
and they may need some help on putting up a business plan, which
Hmm.
will be sold, which can be sold to the investors, and which is a feasible one,
Hmm.
or to clients and things like that, and that becomes a one of the most essential coaching. Or even how do you build a team, how do you build a sales organization, how do you build a customer support organization, all of
Hmm.
those, organization building and all that becomes a very, very important aspect.
Actually, Deep, you've raised a very important point. I don't see startups thinking about, are they creating a company for longevity? Are they creating an
Yeah,
organization which will be there for 10 years, 15 years, 20 years? And that thinking has to come in, because you can't just say 3 years from now, I'm going to sell the business and move on to a new
exactly.
idea. Maybe that's your plan. But if the investors hear that, they're not going to invest in you. So think long term hasn't happened in many companies.
Yeah, actually, everybody's looking at the still. I think it's bit of a gold rush kind of a thing, and I think rightly or wrongly, serial entrepreneurs are eulogized more than successful, sustainable businesses. So I guess some of these also got to do with the investors. I would say mindset and the kind, as you rightly said, the type of invested. Are we looking for a shorter time frame versus a longer time frame? So, my final question to you is, you have been throughout your career, throughout your professional career, you have been an operating leader, right? You have built teams, you have scaled organization, you have done so many things, right?
Mhm.
Not just in India, across Asia Pacific as well. And when you're on as an advisor, right, what is the kind of feeling or sense you get out of it? Because you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So you would say rather I just might as well get it done myself.
You know,
So
so
yeah,
it's so true. Initially, I used to say, why is it taking so long? It can just get done. Why am I trying to convince someone to do in a particular way? I know it will work. So that, I know it all was a lot.
right,
And then,
right.
so initially, it took me quite some time. But now, most of the time, I sit with my hands under my leg, under my bum, on my seat, and say, I'm not going to do it. You have to do it. and and I think I've learned in the last 2 years when I took on these roles is I need to ask questions which make the entrepreneur think,
Think.
and think of it as it was his decision and outcome rather than giving him a solution. That works better. If you think of an answer to a question put to you, you know that's the right question answer, and you go ahead and execute it. So execution is better than saying do this. Is to say, what do you think will work in this situation? And if they give the right answer, you say, yeah, let's do it, and it gets executed.
It's very interesting because you mentioned that, because obviously knowing you would rather, get it done and then, than telling somebody to do it repeatedly. So,
Yeah.
but
I see a question from the audience,
ah,
Devdeep.
okay,
It says, how do I enforce my intellectual property and stop others from entering in the sector with similar solutions?
yeah,
Uh, I think this is a very important question. And intellectual property rights in our country are really cumbersome. It takes time to get intellectual property, but you need to ensure you register it, and otherwise you can't protect it. But let's assume an idea you got, 100 other people got it. The speed of execution is far important than anything else. The speed at which you bring out the product, the speed at which you are able to go ahead and do it. It's before somebody can say, Jack Robinson, you should have done it. That kind of a speed is needed in startups. You don't have luxury of time. Somebody can copy your idea very soon. Deep, what do you feel?
yeah, yeah. I totally agree because I think what you said is absolutely the this thing. The most important point is the speed of execution, because how do you build your barriers to entry for
Hmm.
your competitors is through your customer acquisition, is through your referenceability, uniqueness of idea beyond a point doesn't exist in today's world,
Hmm.
right? It is how do you build up scale quickly, and obviously how do you put some guardrails, whether in terms of registering it, whether in terms of creating some kind of a I would say entry barrier for your competitors. You're absolutely spot on. But I think
The
speed of
next
execution.
question is for
Uh,
you. As a,
okay.
I'm going to ask you this. As a B2B startup founder, I have found investor interest very difficult to capture. Is there any advice for me? How do I compete with large companies as a B2B startup, earning the trust of first market? Yeah, that we
Yeah.
discussed already. So, how do
Yeah.
you get the investors to look at a startup?
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting question. So let me. I think my philosophy is a bit different. My philosophy is a B2B SaaS. Unlike in a B2C where you have to, in a way, almost think through the product design before you take it to the market. In the B2B SaaS side of it, if you have customer access, you can build your minimum viable product along with the customer. Or you can also, if you have a services model, you can pivot it to a platform model, right? So there are multiple ways of creating a B2B SaaS product, either with customers or through if you have a services model, you can pivot it to a platform model. So these are few ways, and if you have the first few paying customers, investors will follow you instead of you following investors. So that's one way of doing it, and that's a beauty in a B2B SaaS startup. So that's how I would say as
I'll also say one thing to you.
yeah,
Now, building a trust of a customer is actually no different in a big company or a small company.
that's true.
You have to make the product or solution or SaaS work. If it works well, the customer then feels, yes, it's a good product, it is delivering the results it has been providing. Today, we find that the startups are so keen to launch their product, it's not ready, it doesn't work, and
Yeah,
you've lost the customer even before you've started if in day one it just doesn't get installed and working well. So that is one. If you can make, and I can tell you there have been problems, but if you have genuinely shown interest to solve the problems and you've been interacting, you will find that your customers will stay with you for life. So a, don't get into a rush to sell incomplete solution and product, and b, if things go wrong, please take ownership of it and fix it, because if you run away, you're lost the customer forever. That's what I would say for the customers, for getting them.
good. I think we are at the hour. Neelam, it's always a pleasure, as I said, and interacting with you. And I think these are some life lessons for many of the audience, and including me, because how do you balance? As you rightly said, there are four quadrants you have to balance: your investors, your customers, your talent, and your product. And you have to be a superman or a super lady, right, to be successful. So it's simple, easy, just do it. So
Yeah. Thank
so
you.
thanks, sir.
Thanks, Deep. Enjoyed myself talking to you, and I hope it helps a lot of people. Thank you. Bye.
Absolutely, absolutely. Bye.